Summer is the perfect time to explore Portland's inner districts on Biketown e-bikes or scooters. Biketown also recently expanded to Selwood, so you can now ride from the Steel Bridge to Selwood Bridge along our beautiful waterfront with access to the best river swimming spots. All you gotta do is pick out a bike and use the Biketown or Lyft app to scan its QR code. Then you hop on and you start your ride. Plus, new riders can use CityCast 25 for a free unlock. Just don't forget your helmet.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel? Or that white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Today on CityCast Portland, we're talking about a new survey that shows women have a much more favorable view of Portland than men, a bump in downtown business traffic thanks to recent protests, and the city's plan to boost the number of traffic enforcement cameras. Joining me on this week's Friday News Roundup are Stumptown Savings founder Bryan M. Vance and our very own senior producer, Giulia Fiaoni. It's Friday, August 8th. I'm executive producer John Notarianni in for Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. Welcome, everyone, to the Friday News Roundup. Bryan, Giulia, thanks for hanging out with me this morning. Hey.
Hey, John.
Good morning.
So for those of you who are new to this show, this is the day that we break down some of the biggest local stories of the week. We bring in some of the best and brightest journalists in town to help us do it. But before we jump into the news, I usually like to ask an opening question so our listeners can kind of get to know our guests a little bit better. And guys, today my opening question is related to this recent story that the USDA is using drones to deter wolves from attacking cattle in Southern Oregon and Northern California. And the way that they're doing it is with loudspeakers that are playing a couple things. One, Thunderstruck, the AC/DC song. The argument scene from A Marriage Story, that movie with Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver.
That's so
They're also
funny.
experimenting with a Five-Finger Death Punch song and just the sounds of like fireworks and gunshots. So my question to you guys, what sound would you choose if you were a rancher in Southern Oregon and had to like scare wolves away? What would you choose?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have this one. It came to me immediately. First of all, I'm just trying to picture like this brainstorming room of people being like, no, what about this annoying sound? But my sound would be the song Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit. You know that song that's like, it's just one of those days where you wake up and everything. And then it gets really vulgar. But yeah, that would be my song.
Somehow I just got an image of you doing this at karaoke, Giulia.
Yeah, Giulia probably has done this.
It probably happened a time or two.
Yeah. I don't know. The thing is, it has to be a sound that you're okay hearing over and over and over again on repeat.
Oh, good point.
That's a good
because
point.
you live on the ranch. So my initial thought was like a gas-powered leaf blower because those things are obnoxious. But there's no way I could take that. So Baby Shark doesn't bother me that much. Maybe just blast Baby Shark at the wolves over and over again.
Bryan, that is perverse. That is cruel and inhuman.
Do y'all remember they did this in Astoria with sea lions and it backfired? Like they were
Wait,
trying.
Really?
No.
Yeah. Because sea lions took over a bunch of piers in Astoria and they were trying this very thing. They were playing music. They even got an artificial, like mechanical orca at one point. Every single time the sea lions eventually figured out it was fake and just ignored it. And so they just taken over like, half a dozen piers in Astoria now, where they're just lounging all day and pushing each other off the dock. So,
which is pretty cool. There is like some
neat
spots in Astoria where you can actually see them. There's like cuts in the dock and you can be like, oh, look at all the sea lions down there.
That's
so these wolves
funny.
are probably going to eventually, no matter what you do, they're probably going to figure out that like, oh, it's not going to hurt us.
They'll just start
fine.
like howling along.
Yeah.
I'd choose the sound of a pickleball court.
Oh.
I just go, because, there's been like lawsuits about how they're so loud and obnoxious. I mean, if it bothers the yuppies of Portland, like I'm sure that the wolves couldn't stand for it either. Just that thwack, thwack all day.
I like that theory.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. You just want to annoy them, basically.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for your ideas, you guys. And our Hey Portland newsletter is also curious in what you think. So out there, we want to hear from you. Let us know what sound you would choose shoot us an email at portland@citycast.fm. And Rachel's keeping an eye out. We'll get some of those into the Hey Portland newsletters sometime next week. All right, you guys, let's get into the news of the week. Brian, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so there's this weird... It's a story. It's odd. It's kind of strange out there. You know the whole saying, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Well, apparently women are from Portland, men are from Oklahoma City. This is from some analysis of a YouGov survey that City Observatory did. So they broke down this data of this survey of about 2,000 people from across America, where they asked, like, what is your opinion of these various U.S. cities? Sort of like your sense of how nice this place is. What was really interesting to City Observatory when they broke down the data and looked in wasn't necessarily which cities were being the most highly ranked. Spoiler alert, Nashville is apparently America's favorite city, according to this survey.
Shout out
interesting.
Nashville.
Yeah. But the gender gap, there were huge discrepancies between the way men and women ranked cities. And actually the city with the largest gender gap is Portland. Women are 31% more likely to view Portland favorably than men. Men were actually way more likely to view cities in Texas and Oklahoma favorably. So there's some clear, cultural differences here between the genders. I thought it was really interesting. I'm curious, what's your take on Portland? We have a little poll here. Do you view it favorably, John? And what about you, Giulia?
I do. Perhaps unsurprisingly, since I work on a podcast about Portland, I view Portland quite favorably. I am quite pleased to live in Portland and not Oklahoma City. No shade on Oklahoma City, but yeah, I like it here.
All the shade on it. They stole a team. We don't want to be a part of that.
I mean, seeing as I've never been to Oklahoma City, I think that Portland's a pretty safe bet for me.
Yeah. Well, that's what's interesting about this is it's mostly vibes.
Yeah.
Because most of these people have never been to any of these cities. The only city where the majority of the respondents had actually visited was New York City. Every other city was well below 50%. So a lot of people who are viewing Portland both favorably and negatively have just never been here. So they're basing it entirely off of perceptions in the media, things that they've read and seen online. But it's interesting that there's a clear gender difference here.
Yeah. On one hand, it is based on vibes, but it's also what is the perception out there? What are people saying about Portland? What are people thinking about Portland that just know it from the reputation, from the news media, from things like that? It is no surprise that Portland has been a target of conservative media for years at this point, as well as a lot of other West Coast cities. And those are the cities that had huge disparities as well. Places like Portland, but also places like San Francisco. Places like LA.
Yeah.
It seems to show the political divide as much as real divide in perception as well.
Yeah. Another thing I thought about too, just because there was a line talking about how just in general, women are more likely to favor cities than men, just cities in general.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about what people are imagining their lifestyle would be if they lived in that place. And it starts to make me think about okay, more small town rural, maybe more construction type jobs, farming jobs that are typically more geared towards men at this point. So that could lead to a thought process of oh, I just would be happier there, right? I'd have more success there versus somewhere else.
Yeah, and I definitely think, the different policies that a lot of these West Coast cities in particular have around protecting access to reproductive health care and, providing safe spaces for trans people and non-binary people are things that some of the cities in other parts of the country maybe aren't as vocal about. And so it can probably feel safer to certain groups of people than, Oklahoma City. Sorry to keep picking on them, but it's,
they are at the other end of this survey. So
yeah.
What I also thought was really interesting was looking at the cities that were smack dab in the middle that didn't have a gender disparity in how people thought about them. And those cities are Tampa, Raleigh, and Phoenix. Those are the cities that had the equal perception of men and women, which I thought was what do you guys see in those three cities as a common through line? They all sound hot.
Yeah, very hot.
I'm also seeing just the few cities around those that you just mentioned, John, that have only 1 point in one direction or another, like Las Vegas and Omaha. It sends you down a rabbit hole of okay, what is the overall branding of these cities? Like
Yeah.
Las Vegas is a party city for literally everyone. So it makes sense why there's not that big of a divide, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is also interesting to me to think about this in light of the fact that, perceptions of Portland internally are changing really quickly. We've seen a lot of surveying, and I think we'll probably get to it with your story as well, Giulia, of how it seems like in the last several years, we've had this big dip in how people in Portland have felt about our city, and it is rebounding pretty quickly. But obviously, nationally, those trends aren't going to happen as quickly because they're not here. They're not thinking about it every day. I'm sure a lot of these people on the survey are responding to something that they heard about Portland 5 or 10 years ago. But at the same time, these perceptions are probably pretty durable out there in the rest of the world. And, even though they should be, I'm sure that most of these survey respondents aren't listening to CityCast Portland. I bet they don't quite have the day-to-day perception of what's going on in our city. But it'll be interesting to see if those perceptions change over time too.
Yeah, it would be cool to see if they did this again in 5 years, if that gender gap decreases, increases, what goes on there.
Well, Bryan, thanks for breaking that down for us.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's take a quick break here. And then when we come back, let's do more news of the week.
If you haven't been to the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry yet this summer, now is the time, because you can see over 50 large-scale Jurassic World dinosaurs, props, and scenes made from over 6 million Lego bricks. Jurassic World by Brickman is open only until September 1st, and having gone myself, I can attest to the meticulous recreations. Plus, the exhibition gives Lego and Jurassic World fans opportunities to put their creativity and engineering skills to the test. There's building activities like creating new dinosaurs, habitats, and even building an escape vehicle to get away from a T-Rex. Hurry to see this can't-miss exhibit before it closes on September 1st. Learn more at omsi.edu. That's omsi.edu. I am so excited to tell you about the North Coast Express. That's the new seasonal transit option connecting Portland to the most iconic destinations on the Oregon North Coast. On top of just getting to sit back and relax since you're not driving, all buses include free Wi-Fi and charging ports, onboard restrooms, panoramic windows and reclining seats, wheelchair-accessible lifts, and you can grab the bus from the Sunset Transit Center Fridays through Sunday through the end of August. There's flexible return day ticketing, which lets you choose between a spontaneous day trip or a longer coastal stay. For more information like tickets, schedules, and the full route, go to visittheoregoncoast.com/express. That's visittheoregoncoast.com/express.
All right, Giulia, what do you have for us this week?
So my segment comes from some reporting by Ashley Koch at KGW and Mike Rogway at the Oregonian. And they're talking about how small businesses downtown are actually pretty stoked about the recent anti-Trump protests going on the past few months. And that's because people are actually hanging out downtown. So if you haven't heard, I'm sure most everyone has, there have been a few huge protests this summer, with the third protest just happening about a week ago. And there have been tons of people showing out. There's, in some cases, over 50,000 people have come through downtown Portland and the waterfront to protest. And before that first initial protest, businesses were kind of anxiously anticipating the violence and property damage that they had seen about 5 years ago through 2020 in the George Floyd protests. And they were actually organizing with Portland police to be able to prepare for that. And they've all said that they've been thrilled to acknowledge that they haven't had to deploy those safety plans at all this summer through this protest season. And it's actually started to become a place for people to build community and connect with each other, because they're literally gathering at the table and sharing a meal after these demonstrations. Some examples of that are at the Midtown Beer Garden on Southwest 5th. Their food carts literally sold out the first major protest, No King's Day, back in June. Right around the corner, Kel's Irish Pub had a similar thing going on. They said that they had people coming around that hadn't been downtown in years and were actually reflecting to the owners that they were surprised to see how clean it was, and that they were noticing that some folks that have been living out in the streets are actually getting help which is a huge deal because of how much effort from the city that's going into that right now. This is all to say, it hasn't completely been favorable for everyone. Places like Powell's were reporting 10 to 20% less sales on days of protests, and other retail shops, just because it feels kind of funny to be somewhere protesting and then go out shopping after.
Right.
It's just not the thing to do. But that is to say, I know our restaurants have been struggling the most in that area. So I think it's one of those things where it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't benefit everyone, but it does really benefit a certain population of people that have been getting hit the hardest. And this is like a really wild thing to come to terms with, because there's so much anxiety around protesting in Portland because of what happened 5 years ago. And there still are some pretty major examples of more violent protests happening down on the South Waterfront at the ICE facility. It's a situation where that perception is maintained, versus these larger protests downtown have taken on a new life, and it's become more uniquely beneficial to folks in the city and just the community as a whole. And then the other interesting side of it is that just in general, more folks are actually coming downtown this summer than they have in the past. But before I get into that, what's your guys' take on the protest situation? Was this surprising to hear?
Oh, I think this is so delightful. And also kind of like, of course, Portland has such a long history and sort of cultural orientation towards these types of protests. And, you know, after the George Floyd protests, which I think were pretty harrowing for a lot of people, it sort of felt for a moment like, oh, this is what Portland's about. But that's not the case at all. That really was a blip. That really was the exception to the rule. And, you know, when I think about the years leading up to that, you know, we did have big protests in downtown in 2017 and 2019. And they were almost exclusively peaceful and felt very joyful, excluding certain clashes that might have happened with like the Proud Boys or situations like that. But like, we are a culture that this has been something that Portlanders have done for decades, if not longer. And the idea that people are coming down and being like, oh, yeah, this is pretty nice. I kind of like it down here. I had a really nice lunch after my protest as a sort of method of civic engagement and helping the business community rebound. I love it.
Yeah, I'm with you, John. Like, in some ways, I'm a little shocked at how well it's going. But also then I remember, you know, like, I was covering the original, like, Portland protests the first time Trump got elected. There were dance parties happening at those things. Like, sure, there were clashes between people in body armor, but those were very, very small groups of people, and they weren't like hitting businesses. They were hitting each other. But most people were just like happy to be around people who had similar beliefs and similar views as them, and just enjoying it as a chance to like build community and find joy in these moments. And I think that's what we're seeing with a lot of these protests happening right now, is they're a little bit more focused on who they're protesting. You know, I hope that it continues to go this way.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that we're talking about this on the eve of the second World Naked Bike Ride of the year that's coming up tomorrow on Saturday, which to me sort of feels like what ideal Portland protest is like, you know, there is a political underpinning to it, but it's joyful and it is communal and it's like a little bit wacky, and it is a way for people to like celebrate at the same time as protesting.
Yeah. I think it's a really special way that I think Portland is coming together in this moment, whether it's the Naked Bike Ride, whether it's the protesting, to do the thing that we say we want to do, which is support these businesses and take care of our downtown. And it does go beyond these large events too. So like I mentioned, in general, folks are just showing up downtown more this summer, much more this summer than last year, according to some anonymized cell phone tracking data from Placer.ai and Eco Northwest. Foot traffic downtown and nearby neighborhoods like the Pearl District and Central East Side is at 85% of pre-pandemic levels, which is about 15,000 more trips in the area a day than at this time last year, which is awesome. But zooming in a little closer, the downtown core still isn't doing too great, with foot traffic only being 58% of what it was at the start of 2020. And they were saying that the overall bump is partially due to some apartment buildings opening up. And in general, office workers just didn't return post-COVID, which is not anything new. We've heard about this. Many commercial buildings are still vacant. We have one of the highest vacancy numbers in the nation with this. And it's because Portland is full of small businesses, these small businesses that we're supporting, not large corporations, which means it's necessary to start redefining downtown as a hub for entertainment and music and arts and community, like we're doing with these protests and these gatherings and these events. And it really does remind me of what's been going on at the Lloyd Center the last couple of years, where all of these big box stores have moved out, and we're redefining the culture by moving in these pop-up businesses that are super DIY, very Portland, and they're thriving. And it's an affordable approach for them to get their business started. People are coming out to check out what's going on. It's this really beautiful moment in time for that space. It just feels like things are kind of moving in that direction in general, and it feels like the right moment to do it. Downtown crime has been back to pre-pandemic levels this year.
Yeah.
People are generally feeling more positively about downtown. There's so much stuff that's going to be opening up in the next few months. The James Beard Market, there's a new theater at PSU. There are tons of events happening constantly right now. So there's a tango night at Directors Park, which is right in the heart of downtown.
Oh, cool.
It's coming up on Monday at 6 p.m. I really want to go check that out. There's concerts happening all month at Pioneer Courthouse Square. If you've never gone to one of those are always such a fun time. There's a spot called Cadejo Coffee that hosts brunch every weekend. There's an amazing farmer's market every Wednesday right in front of the Portland Art Museum. I could go on and on and on. Like, the whole area just feels like it's alive right now.
Julia, are we having a good news roundup accidentally?
It's freaking me out, John.
It seems like
I can't remember the last time we had one.
Well, I'm going to take a quick break, and surprise, surprise, I've got some good news too.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
If you're a home DIYer like me, you might have a few leftover paint cans gathering dust in your basement. Or maybe your house already came with a bunch of them like mine did. So I'm happy to share that Paint Care makes recycling your leftover paint, stain, and varnish simple and easy with convenient drop-off locations as close as your local hardware store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up leftover paint. And 3, recycle the rest. If you visit paintcare.org/3simplerules, you'll find tips on how to do all 3. Buying the right amount of paint for your project, exploring DIY ideas for how to use up leftover paint, and also just look up the nearest drop-off site in your neighborhood. Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for Oregonians.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for buy one, get one free on select styles, plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
All right, I've got some news that might initially sound like bad news, but I think is good news. Talking about speed cameras here in Portland. The city has 32 different traffic cameras monitoring things like speeding, as well as people who are running red lights. They're mostly in high crash areas. They've been in place for about 10 years. Well, recently people noticed all of a sudden, all these cameras were taken down. And there was this like blip of panic on the internet of like, wait, what is going on here? Well, it is all according to plan. The city is transitioning to a new vendor because there were issues with the previous contractor that operated these cameras. And all of those cameras are about to be, or in the process of being replaced and upgraded. There's going to be new technology. It's a part of a contract between PBOT and this company, Navoa Global. So they're coming back online. Also, the city is adding more speed cameras at new intersections. By November 1st, there's going to be new cameras on Southeast Powell Boulevard, also on several intersections on 82nd. There are more cameras coming in 2026. And like PBOT has really sort of been ramping up the installation of these cameras recently. The long-term goal is to double them from 32 where we are currently up to 64 in the next few years. And it's good news because like there's a lot of data that shows that these cameras really do save lives.
Yeah, they
really do
impact.
Convince drivers to slow down. There was this recent study by this research group Cochrane that found that speed cameras reduce total crashes by up to 49% and deadly and serious crashes by up to 44%. So, yeah, it appears this is one place where we are incrementally moving in the right direction. What about you guys? Are you speed camera friendly?
I'm all for anything that makes our roads safer. Like a big problem that we've had in Portland for a long time was it felt like there was no accountability for bad behavior on the roads. I mean, the Portland Police Bureau literally came out at one point and said, we disbanded our traffic enforcement division. Like it was a billboard to everyone who wanted to speed. Unfortunately, human nature is if there are no consequences for actions, some people are going to take some really bad actions. And so they're not perfect. Definitely, there's some issues around the placement of speed cameras. They do tend to, not just in Portland, across the board, cities tend to place them in more low-income neighborhoods and areas that are predominantly inhabited by people of color versus, areas that are more white and more wealthy. So there's definitely some equity issues there. But the one thing that's really nice about them is the person giving the ticket isn't actually a person at that point. It's a camera and there's evidence. So it does eliminate some of the other issues with like having cops out on the road and, the internal biases that come with that of who they enforce.
Racial profiling, prejudicial traffic stops, let alone just what we know is the increased danger that traffic
100%
stops pose to citizens.
And also just like resources being strained. I think it's a great way to have a different approach to managing this type of issue without actually having physical bodies out there trying to deal with it. It just seems like a better way all around. If we have to do it, if we have to make sure that we're holding people accountable in this way, then I think this is probably the simplest approach. So it's nice to see that the city's leaning in this direction as opposed to something else that doesn't really make sense.
I do have to call you out, though, Giulia. When I asked how you feel about traffic cameras, I saw a smirk on your face. I know you're about to get a car, Giulia. Was there? Did I read something there?
I thought about it, and my struggle and my anxiety with getting a car soon is that folks just drive a lot slower here than the places that I grew up in. So I think I'm going to get caught in a situation where I'm just like not really thinking about it and going 10 above, whatever it may be, because I'm just not used to it yet. But ultimately, I know it's good. That's why I was like, fine.
It's for the greater good.
I think we all know that like heart-stopping feeling of getting the flash from
it's
a
the
traffic
worst.
camera.
It's so embarrassing.
You're just like cruising
and
along.
You get your photos sent to you in the mail. It's the worst. It's like the opposite of when you go on a roller coaster and you get to see a picture of yourself at the end and you're stoked about it. This is like, I don't want to look at myself. I hate myself.
And it does have a real feeling of like, bro, we got you. Don't even try.
It's a lot harder.
Like, you're right there. We see you. And, like not everybody loves traffic cameras. Do you guys remember this story from last year about the guy who got arrested for shooting traffic cameras out?
After him.
There was this guy, he got like 4 traffic tickets in like a couple months, and he went on a crime spree shooting out traffic cameras, like a dozen cameras across the city. Of course, he eventually got caught on video shooting a camera because it's a camera.
It wasn't a good idea. Like,
Not
just a bad idea all around.
It's bold. I'll say that. It's really bold.
Yeah. I will say, if you do get a ticket, something that people might not know, in Portland, if you do get a ticket for some infractions, you can just take a class and get it waived from your record. I have taken the class. I am not too proud to admit I got a speeding ticket once, and I took the class to learn not to speed. You still have to pay a fine, but it does prevent it from going on your record and getting your insurance boosted.
Yeah.
I'm one of those slow drivers that Giulia hates, so it's like, it's fine. If everyone's just going to like slow down and drive at my speed, it'll be great.
Well, it's interesting to look at all of this in light of Vision Zero, which is sort of concurrently with the traffic cameras being installed. This was a program that the city started trying to stop traffic deaths completely by 2030. Efforts are underway, things like traffic cameras to try and prevent road deaths. We are not anywhere close to doing that.
We're not going to hit that goal.
We're not going to hit that goal. And it's worth mentioning, the city is looking into this. The city council actually this week was looking to take up a resolution to reaffirm its commitment to Vision Zero and plan a new task force. Like literally, they were going to vote on this on Wednesday. That plan got pushed to September. So this is something the city council will be looking at in about a month. But yeah, I mean, still trying to make our roads safer. Hopefully this will be one big piece of it.
Yeah.
It's a struggle.
All right. Well, thanks for chewing on that one with me. Before we head out, though, we do have some shout outs from members of our Portland Neighbors program. This is one of the perks of being a Portland neighbor, of supporting this program. You get the opportunity to shout out local businesses or organizations that you love here in the city. And we got a couple for you today. Julia, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. So I have one here from neighbor Ann C. And they're shouting out Portland Revels, that puts on a unique and different every year performance during the holiday season. Auditions for the community chorus are open to adults and children.
Nice. I've got one from Mark M, who wants to shout out Beaumont Wilshire Hardware. It's a local business that has served Northeast Portland since the 1950s. I love a good hardware store. I don't know about you guys.
Oh,
too.
man. They're so fun to wander through.
Especially like a mom and pop hardware shop.
And they smell so nice. Like, they just have this, like, kind of fun old smell.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's hard to describe. Like, someone should turn that into an air freshener for a
holiday.
I would totally buy that.
Okay, I have one more here from neighbor Riley G. And they say, the water department. Fresh, clean, and daily goodness from Bull Run. All right and tight. Great drip.
Great drip.
So good.
And Mark, Riley, thank you so much. When you join as a Portland neighbor, we'd also be happy to read your shout outs of places you love, along with a bunch of other perks, stuff like ad-free listings, member-exclusive get-togethers. There's a whole lot, and you can join the membership program by checking it out at membership.citycast.fm. Well, Bryan, Julia, a mix of good news for once. Thank you so much for taking the time
so positive.
and hanging out with me this week.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, John.
Thanks, John.
Well, that's all for us this week here on CityCast Portland, but thank you so much for listening. Our podcast production team this week was Giulia Fiaoni, Catherine Gorman, and Francisco Kilgore. Our Hey Portland newsletter editor is Rachel Monahan, and our host is Claudia Meza. I'm executive producer John Notarianni. Original music by Jenny Conley and Stephen Drisos. Additional music by All the Kimonos, as well as Sarah the Instrumentalist, Timothy Infinite, and Gregory David, courtesy of Epidemic Sound. We'll be back on Monday with much more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.